Game 6 to the Pacers. What did they do so well to bounce back? Why did the Thunder have such a low show? And who will rise in Game 7 for the final time of the NBA Finals? A crossover. Locked On Pacers and Locked On Thunder breaking it all down.
You are Locked On NBA Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Happy Saturday/weekend, and welcome to a crossover. Locked On Pacers and Locked On Thunder, our 7th one, including our series preview of this finals. It's going the distance. What a series, what stories, and what a Game 6 for the Pacers, and certainly not for the Thunder. I'm Tony East. I host Locked On Pacers. Rylan Stiles is here. He hosts Locked On Thunder. He's been yapping about a lot of Game 7s this year. This is the second time. This is the Pacers' first one this year and first one since they beat the Knicks in the Garden last year. So much at stake. We will get to Game 7, which is tomorrow night. But we have to talk about Game 6, which was maybe the Thunder's worst performance of the playoffs, one of the Pacers' best performances, certainly their best in this finals, especially on the defensive end. Rylan, what did the Pacers do so well to you? Because there were so many things that I talked about, but I'm curious into your eyes, what made them look so effective?
Yeah, I think that the Pacers just had an ability to come out with the proper energy, the proper urgency that the game requires for a Game 6 of the NBA Finals, and the Thunder could not. I mean, the Thunder just quite literally did not show up whenever they were 48 minutes away from winning a championship. I mean, that was a sense of immaturity from a young Thunder team. I don't know why they could not muster up the desperation, but this has been a trend for OKC. Like this entire playoff run, they've been excellent at responding to getting hit in the face, but they haven't really delivered that first punch a ton in these series. And so, they've had to suffer through some losses like this where times are good because they have a hard time manufacturing desperation unless they're truly, truly desperate, like they will be on Sunday. So I just think that was the first thing. But Indiana, I've come away with this series, win or lose Game 7 for Indiana on Sunday, thoroughly impressed with their ability to defend and their ability to, whenever they are at their best, play on a string defensively and make you really be limited offensively. They really limited OKC in the sense of it had to turn into either turnovers, which the Thunder turned it over plenty, or isolation basketball, which is not the way the Thunder like to play. And so because if they tried to trust their teammates, as J-Dub said, they did a bad job down the stretch of trusting their teammates. If they tried to trust their teammates, they'd swing it over after Shea or J-Dub had gotten blitzed or had gotten doubled. Then immediately there's someone rotating over cleanly on a scram switch from Indiana to take that guy away as well on the secondary action. So I did not think that Indiana would be as good defending secondary actions as they have been this series. And I think that was vital to their Game 6. And then, you got, I mean, I know that the end result on the 3-point column is not loud in terms of percentages, but for the actual game, you got a really good 3-point shooting game, which is what you needed. And then Tyrese Haliburton, he looked way better than I think anyone should have expected him to. And he sustained that. Yeah.
Yeah, that was impressive. We'll get to that. But the defense was the shining part to me, the second straight game in Cambridge where the Thunder didn't shoot well, but last time they didn't shoot well, they still scored 111, right? They found ways to put the ball in the basket with middies, with free throws, with whatever other source of points exist. And in this game, that wasn't there. J-Dub didn't, I mean, it's not like Shea and J-Dub had bad shooting nights. Like their percentages were both mostly adequate. They were just like tougher shots and seeing doubles and had to think, right? And that's what I think the defensive change was for the Pacers that struck me the most is when they got below the foul line or whatever their trigger point was. That's what it looked like to me. They would send that double, usually from the high side, so they couldn't turn around. That's where a lot of those steals or turnovers came from, is just poking it out right there. That was kind of newer, so it forced them to think about where their open teammate even was. Their rotations with their low man were different in terms of how they X'd out, or how they got to those shooters to make it so that when they did trust their teammates, there wasn't a lot available to them. And so, yes, the Thunder shot badly again, right? That's a part of why they scored 91, but they scored 111 2 games before that in the same building with the bad shooting game because they found other solutions. And that's the stuff the Pacers cut off better, was everything coming toward the rim. That was their best rim defense game. And part of it was actually that, stopping shots in the paint, stopping shots around the basket, stopping player and ball movement, but also getting those steals and forcing a kabillion turnovers. And the thing that they love is the Pacers are so good at when another team misses a layup, right? They love to push in those moments, especially when the player who took the layup, even if they make it sometimes, is like on the ground because there was contact or whatever. A steal close to the basket is a similar scenario as there is to that, because a defensive player is now 94 feet from the basket, essentially. And so even if that's not actually leading to a transition play, it gets you in the open floor with like mismatches, cross matches, whatever. And that's where they're so good. And that's where they made a lot of hay in the last game as well. So because of the way their defense played, it allowed them to stylistically settle into the way they want to play. And so they didn't have like an awesome offensive night. 108's their lowest total in a win this whole postseason, actually. But it, like you said, they shot it during well, I don't know what the competitive portion was. It was over by halftime. But, during the actual part of the game where real players were playing the whole time, they shot about 40% from deep. That's great. But they played a really Pacers-y game and combined it with their best defensive game of the series. And there's a lot of other little things that I would like to talk about with them and their success in this game, including Haliburton. But the defense part that you're referring to, I think, opened up literally all of that. And that's why they were able to look so good in this game, and why the Thunder will have to adjust to a new plan on Sunday.
Yeah, and you mentioned that their defense allowed them to play more comfortable offense. I think that led to no turnovers, limiting the turnovers against the Thunder, where the Thunder didn't have their first steal to the third quarter. I mean, they just could not get traction in transition for OKC against Indiana. And when you look at when the Thunder shot well from 3 in Game 5, part of it was just as simple as like role players shoot better at home. But a lot of it, like a lot of their threes in Game 5 was in transition. And like they were getting steals and then taking and settling for transition threes that would go in. And they just could not get the numbers game going downhill because they could not produce turnovers. And Indiana has been the only team in this entire playoffs that has consistently been able to have games in which they don't turn it over. Every other team in this entire run has been, okay, it's kind of like what Carlos said about Shea. Whenever you walk into the game, you just say, okay, they're going to turn it over 20 times. So let's see if they can turn it over even more than 20 times. But with Indiana, I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do Sunday. I have no idea if they're going to turn it over 20 times, 10 times, 7 times, 18 times. I have no idea. But I'm telling you, every other opponent the Thunder have played has been solidified, sharpied it in 20-plus turnovers a game. And that's a different wrinkle that the Thunder have to get used to and have had to try to adjust to. And it's really hard because this team is not built to play half-court offense. And by not turning it over, you force them to do what they're worst at.
Yeah, and we talked about turnovers before the series, and I talked about it with Pacers guests all the time. Like, look, we're going to talk about it a lot because it's a thing the Thunder do, and there will be games where there's a lot, but like the Pacers are a great low turnover team. Like that balance will matter every single game, and it has. They only won once when they had the crazy turnover game. Everybody remembers game 1. But that was obviously huge too. Not only have 10, but to win the turnover battle that significantly. Like after game 5, so many Pacers players, when I asked them about their offense, were like, yeah, we got to turn it over less. And like, not even necessarily just for them, but just get the possession battle closer to even. And they dominated it. They were better on the glass too. I think only 4 offensive rebounds for the Thunder also. Like a better rebounding game for Myles in terms of hitting guys, not even getting the board himself. Tony Bradley's doing things in a final series, which is, I'm sure, not something any Thunder fan who used to have Tony Bradley on the team ever expected to happen too. Like they just did everything well in the possession game, and that also played a big part in them winning the game by 17. And now we could talk about Haliburton, who we talked about, would they target him? And like very early, J-Dub, I think it was the 4th Thunder points of the game, scored because Lou Dort runs up from the wing, sets a screen. Tyrese Haliburton's the switch man. J-Dub splits right between the defenders. He gets to the basket. And I thought, oh boy, this is going to be a tough night for the Pacers on defense if that's just a thing the Thunder are going to do all night. And they weren't able to because Haliburton was moving well enough to stunt and recover back to Dort or just do something of value on defense. He was in the gaps, getting some steals and moving well. And on offense, he didn't initiate that much, but he did enough to get to his step back 3 and score 14 points and have 6 or 5 assists. I don't have the box score in front of me. And that was huge. So one, right there, he was just straight up better than I think most people thought he could be. Like he played very well through a pretty serious injury. Thing 2 is they got good play from all their other initiators who didn't turn it over that much. 3 from McConnell, but then like 1 from everyone else, right? Nembhard had a good game. He was taking it across the timeline a decent amount. Not a lot, but a decent amount. Siakam played well when he was asked to handle. TJ McConnell has been etching himself in finals lore these last couple of games. He was the most popular post-game interview again, which has been just hilarious to see in the locker room. And that was a big part of it. Nembhard McConnell minutes returned, which is a thing they've gone to in the past, but not as much in this playoff run. And they mostly returned because the Pacers went with fewer minutes. In fact, any at all is usually a surprise, with no Haliburton or Siakam, because they're limiting Haliburton's minutes in these games. He didn't have to play the whole fourth quarter, right? Those usually don't go particularly well. They went fine because of those point guards. So not only did Haliburton himself play as well as could have been expected, I think, given his current muscle reality, the guys who had to step up to make that possible all played a good game. Like, all of them made shots. All of them kept the ball moving. All of them didn't turn it over very much. That was equally huge to me, that they got juice out of lineups that I was like, wow, that is not something I ever expected to work against OKC. And so the Haliburton solutions to me, and I talked about this in my postgame show, were just as much Haliburton as they were the rest of the team.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they complement each other very well. I think the biggest thing is what you're saying of your initial point, that the Thunder had the right mentality in terms of trying for the Haliburton switch at the start of the game. But quickly, the Haliburton switch did not yield anything. It did not produce anything because of how well Haliburton was moving. And so I think that in and of itself, before you talk about anything else, was the biggest win for Indiana. And then you mix in, hey, like you said, even though they couldn't rely on Haliburton in the sense of like they wanted to try to take some of the load off of him and not have him initiate quite literally everything, those guys still didn't turn it over either, which is a big deal. And is that sustainable? We'll see. Now it's a 1-game sample size in the biggest game that anyone on the floor has ever played, besides maybe Caruso and Siakam, but even them, like it's a game 7 of the finals.
Yeah, I don't know.
They have not played in the game 7 of the finals, so it's like it's the biggest game of everybody in the stadium right now. So does that change anything, for better or worse? Who knows? But just Haliburton's ability to not be an absolute turnstile defensively has been big for Indiana, especially him being hurt and doing this. Like, that's really, really, really impressive.
Yeah, we talked about that, and I could tell that they were going to try to target him, but him being just good enough to not make that a viable strategy also forced the Thunder to settle into the ISO e-ball stuff that you were talking about. Like, and when you stray from your identity, even if you do up the intensity at points in the game, which, like, I get why the Thunder should have played harder, but like, I get why they stopped trying to up the intensity when they were down 30 in the game. But you know, that really hurts. Like, it's hard to get back to playing your brand of ball. I think the Pacers found that out in game 5. Like, they turned it over so much early. They were playing too fast. It took them forever to play Pacers ball, and they did cut it to 2 the same way the Thunder cut it to 1 in the second quarter. But it's hard to do that, and the better team ran away with those games. We got to look ahead, man. Game 7 of the NBA Finals. Can you believe it? That's all coming up. Who will rise? Who will fall? What's the mentality going to be like for the players? So we'll get to that next here on Locked On Pacers and Locked On Thunder. But before we do that, I got to tell you guys about CarGurus. Shopping for a car should be exciting, not exhausting, but between the confusing prices and hidden fees, it can feel overwhelming. That is why we love CarGurus. They help you cut through the noise and show you the best deals with full confidence. With over 4 million listings, CarGurus has more new and used cars than any other major online marketplace in the U.S. They verify dealers, provide real price analysis, and give you the tools and data you need to make the right choice without second-guessing yourself. If you need a deal that you can trust, CarGurus makes it easy. You can compare vehicles side by side. They give you price drop alerts, the perfect time to buy, plus in-depth vehicle details so you have peace of mind. It's no wonder SimilarWeb estimated traffic data shows CarGurus is the #1 most visited car shopping site. Buy or sell your next car today at CarGurus.com. Go to CarGurus.com. Make sure your next big deal is the best deal. That's CarGurus, CarGurus.com, CarGurus.com. Back here crossing it over on Locked On Pacers and Locked On Thunder. Thanks for making either of us your first listen today and every single day. We've done the second listen thing for Kevin Durant many times, so any of those teams can be your way to go. Locked On Suns, Raptors, Rockets, Spurs, Heat, Wolves, any of the bunch. The Lakers got bought. That's a new bigger thing than that. Go listen to Locked On Lakers, hear about what they're going to do with loaded pockets because the Lakers needed more advantages against the rest of the NBA. Rylan, you said it. Biggest game of everyone's career, right? The last game 7 was 2016. in a finals. A lot of the history, this isn't like a rock solid, I'm guaranteeing this kind of thing, but a lot of the history of game sevens of the finals is close games. And I think that speaks to what I want to get to here is this is it, right? This is this is the biggest game every single player has played in their lives. And it's we've done this cute little thing. Both of us have been like, oh, biggest game in Thunder or Pacers history the whole time. It's over. Like it's this, right? Yeah. And even in future final series, it's like, no, they played at game 7. It's that, right? Like this is it. And if we feel it and are talking about it, like, look, every player is going to tell us today and tomorrow, it feels like any other day. No, it doesn't. Like it doesn't, right? It just does not. And so I will be so endlessly curious how that bleeds onto the court. The Thunder played a game 7 against the Nuggets in the second round and whomped them. Whomped them. Whomped them. Jokic was the only thing that got anything going, and not even that much in that second half of that game. Last year, the Pacers went to MSG for a game 7. Hello, Isaiah Hartenstein. I hope he doesn't have too many flashbacks. Whomped them in the Garden. Whomped them, right? Both teams will at least, I think, have confidence that they can do it, but at the same time, they're going to be fighting themselves more than the other team. And that's why I am just so endlessly fascinated about who will rise in this moment. And you'll learn a lot about who these people are on this stage.
Yeah, I mean, the game 7 aspect of it, especially just from a Thunder perspective of like your only game 7 that you can lean on with this entire core is that Denver game 7, which was over before it really even began. And the crowd was just always rocking. And like, it was just a party for 40 minutes of the 48 minutes of the game. And Alex Caruso was just shutting down Nikola Jokic. And so now you head into a game where we both expect it to be close. And if you look at the history of the finals game 7, the margin of victory is 6.9 points. Very nice games to watch, but it's the smallest amount of any finals games in the NBA finals best of 7 set. So it's going to be a close game. And the building itself, like forgetting the players, the nervous energy emanating from the fans has to have something to do with the players and have some impact on the players. The players, of course, are going to feel the gravity of being this close and the reality that they know on top of what we know. You're never guaranteed to be back here ever again. I mean, like they just saw how hard it is firsthand to get to these finals. And they just saw what they had to go through to get here. And this is your chance to win it. This is your best chance ever to win a ring. You're never going to be like quite literally one game away from winning a ring and all that good ever again. So both teams feel that way. Both teams feel the pressure of that and how that impacts a bunch of young guys. Like these two teams rely on some really young players will be huge. Does the home court advantage even really matter in this game? I wonder, because we mentioned the nervous fans, but also like the role players are more comfortable at home, but game 7s are a naturally uncomfortable environment. So like, does it kind of negate the comfortability of being at the Paycom Center for the stress of like every shot feels like make or miss? You're deciding your dreams are either going to come true or not. So I'm just very curious, like you, of how they handle it emotionally, how they handle it, physically with their comfortability on the court, because I do wonder what that all entails. I do find it interesting that according to our good friends over at FanDuel, like the line had gotten pretty out of hand for what we know about game 7s. And it's shrunk a little bit now to Thunder minus 7.5. But we just mentioned that that would still be more than the average game 7 spread. And these two teams play very close games. And if it's a close game, I lean Indiana because they've won closer games than OKC has so far this playoffs. So this would be an even bigger challenge for the Thunder, who have not had to close out really clutch games in this playoff run.
Yeah, Zach Lowe nailed it, right? It's going to be a Pacer shot in the air to win it. It'll go black like the Sopranos. And no one outside of the arena will ever know who actually won the NBA Finals. It'd be the only way a Pacers run like this could actually go. And that's what I said in my third segment after game 6. Just like, forget the past. Like we can and should talk about game 7s that these teams have played and with these cores and how it, in theory, could influence their mentality in a game like this. But like, it's a finals. Like, it just is different. And you can see it in these games, like how it makes them feel and how loud the crowds are. And like, some players have been like, yeah, I've been able to drown out the crowd pretty well when I'm on the floor. And other players are like, wow, it was crazy. Like, this was the blah, blah, blah. Like, that's going to be the same thing for a literal game 7 of the finals. And the other part you said that's so true is about being one game away. Like we can, and I'm assuming you and I probably both will, given the current realities of the NBA, win or lose for the Pacers or Thunder. The Thunder will be like, we just won 68 games and we have every draft pick under the sun. Like we could be back here. And the Pacers could easily say, look at this. We've been playoff risers 2 years in a row. The East is poo-poo next year. We could be back here. Like they can say that, but getting 3 wins in the finals is like a different kind of beast, even if it seems plausible to do it again. Like you just never, ever know if you're going to have a chance like this, especially in this era of the league where there has not been a repeat champion since the Warriors in 2018. Yeah, since they won before losing to the Raptors, right? You just never, ever, ever know. And even the teams making the finals who lose have not really been getting back all that often in the stretch ends like Boston. It took them 2 years to do it, right? Like you just never know when these chances will be there. And again, we can talk about these things. You know who's thinking about these things? The people participating in the game who will tell us that they don't and absolutely 100% do. Do not believe them. Excuse me. Do not believe them. They're going to do a good job of telling you how they hope they feel, which is true. They want to feel like it's not a big game, but they do feel it. And so that's kind of why I think you just kind of throw the basketball part out the window and be like, hey, mentality is going to kind of shake this game. Which team can play like themselves the best? And I just don't know. Is there any basketball part of this that you're interested in? Like, is Caruso finally going to start? Is my since game one dream going to come true? It happened in the second half last game.
It did happen in the second half last game. Game 7s are naturally going to be hey, throw everything out there. There's nothing left to save. And when you're trying to think of like big adjustments, so the only game 7 that Mark's ever coached in, he made a big adjustment to put Caruso on Jokic for the entire game, basically, and just blanket Jokic with Caruso and disrupt him. That was a big deal for Mark. Like that was something that like you hadn't necessarily seen a ton from him to that point. Now you look at game 7, what could be the big adjustment against this Pacers team with two teams who are similarly styled, but there's a certain style that you have to play against Indiana, like the double big stuff hasn't necessarily gotten a ton of work in against Indiana because of how good they are at pushing the pace. Who's starting? I mean, is it going to be back to Kaysen? Going to be back to double bigs? Will it be Caruso? So I think that if you look at the adjustments you can make, that's the only really one that you can try to throw an adjustment out there that can catch the Pacers off guard a little bit, or just give them a different look than what they're used to, like you wanted to do to Denver in game 7. So I think it's possible that Caruso could start game 7, but I still would lean against it because of how much that they like having Caruso off the bench. With that being said, though, game 7 of the finals, you should not be playing many people off the bench. You should be playing your best 5 guys 40-something minutes. So yeah, it's very interesting.
That's the problem with Haliburton's injury is he probably can't play that much. But TJ McConnell's been the best isolation player in the series the last couple of games. So, yeah, we'll see how rotationally this all shakes out and what kind of goofy choices these teams go to. Maybe the Pacers will make a starting lineup change. That's a joke. There's absolutely zero chance the Pacers make any starting lineup change. The NBA is now tweeting the stat that you just threw out about the 6.9 point difference, like right now. So we are all over this. I can't wait, Rylan. Tomorrow night, it's there. Tonight, I'll be back with a Pacers-related guest talking about Game 7, the history of them, what the Pacers can do. I'm sure you will have another show between now and Game 7. And, of course, practice interviews are coming up, so we'll have actual insight from people playing in the game, Rylan. If people are listening on the Locked On Pacers feed, where can they find you and the things you do with the Oklahoma City Thunder?
Yeah, Locked On Thunder. Anywhere you're listening to Locked On Pacers right now, Thunder on SI and at Rylan_Stiles on social media. Tony, they can find Locked On Pacers, same places of Locked On Thunder.
The same places. I'm at Tony R. East on the social medias. Rylan, this has been a blast. I didn't know how many of these we'd get to do. The maximum number possible. I don't think it makes much sense for us to cross it over talking about a Game 7 into a fictional Game 8. So salute to you, sir.
It's been fun, man.
On a long finals run. I'm sure we'll have a good time next week going, okay, championship game. Okay, run. Okay. Oh, the draft is here. Hello. Okay, very exciting. Man, what a long season it's been for these teams. It comes to an end tomorrow. Thank you all so much for listening to both of these shows. We will see you very soon.